Welcome to the Counselors of Real Estate Top 10 podcast series. In these 10-minute episodes, we'll discuss one of the prevailing 2022-23 top 10 issues affecting real estate. I'm Bill McCarthy, CRE, the Global Chair of the Counselors of Real Estate. I'm the president of my company, WPJ McCarthy and Company, and we're situated in Burnaby, British Columbia, Canada. The Counselors of Real Estate are trusted advisors finding solutions to complex real estate challenges, experienced, innovative, and credentialed problem solvers. Counselors reside in 21 countries and practice in more than 60 disciplines of real estate. We practice across all asset types. Each has earned the prestigious CRE designation. Our guest for this episode is Andrew Nelson, CRE, an independent real estate economist with Nelson Economics in Boston. Andrew also serves as the lead writer for Emerging Trends in Real Estate, published annually by the Urban Land Institute and PwC. Previously, he served as the Chief U.S. economist for Colliers International. Andrew authored the narrative supporting the number 6 issue on this year's compilation of the top 10 issues affecting real estate. His focus was on labor shortage strange. To review all issues of this year's report, visit cre.org/top10. Andrew, based upon the topic that you addressed and emerging trends thereafter, I'll turn it over to you with 2 questions. And first of all, thank you very much for participating with us. Are you ready?
Yep, pleased to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. So here's the first question. While employment growth is still positive, the pace of hiring slowed in the U.S. in October as capital costs continue to rise for business. What does this mean for commercial real estate?
So thanks for the question. And, I guess I would frame it just a little bit differently, which is that as all of our viewers well know, the Fed has been trying to slow the economy a bit in the interest of taming inflation. But by just about any measure, the U.S. Labor market is very, very strong by historical standards and even by recent standards, and essentially as strong as it was in June when we released our top 10 list. Job openings and quits remain at or near their highest levels ever recorded since the government started tracking this data about 2 decades ago. And despite some recent headlines about job layoffs, I guess, particularly in the tech sector, and I'll note that just this morning, Meta said they were going to lay off over 11,000 people. Employment still remains near, the unemployment rate remains near 5-decade lows. And job claims for claims for new unemployment remain historically very low. And the last thing I'll just say on that front is job growth, as you noted, has slowed a little bit, but at 260,000 new jobs created in September, even if that's down a little bit from where it was, it's still, by historical standards, very strong. I mean, for context, in 2019, the average was about 150,000 or something like that. So still very strong labor markets relative to historical standards and just in general. So what does that mean? I guess the Fed's going to have more work to do to slow the economy, but for now, again, job growth remains pretty strong, we looked at this the job shortage and the job worker issue from kind of 2 different angles. One is demand for property, and then the other is how it affects real estate firms. And in terms of how it affects real estate firms, there are still job shortages, as I said, job openings remain very high. So firms cannot find the workers they need to keep growing, but there's no doubt that they still want to grow. On the other hand, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect now between job growth and demand for property, the historical trends the historical connection that we'd see. So we are seeing a slowdown in demand for certain types of real estate now, but I'm not sure it's all that much related to job growth per se.
Just a quick segue on that. One of the big topics of the debate regarding anything related to labor and job growth and positions available and not fulfilled. Are we going to be in an era of the hybrid office space where people are going to be working from home and from the office, and how that balances out is going to be one of the central questions affecting real estate going forward?
You nailed it. I mean, that it is going to be one of the central issues, one of the key issues affecting all real estate sectors, but obviously most especially the office sector. And we're more than 2 years into the pandemic, and things are normalizing across a broad range of economic and real estate activities, and yet we're not seeing people return to the office in the way they had. I think there was a lot of maybe misplaced optimism a year ago that once things receded, once the virus receded, that we would all come back to the office as it was. I think that the more recent data has shown that is unrealistic, and that we will continue to be working from home. More of us will be working from home more often than we used to, with implications obviously for the office sector, less demand for office space going forward. And I know that's been slow to kind of manifest because of long-term leases, but as leases expire, you're going to see firms give back more and more space, and overall demand for office will go down. And then there'll be implications for other property sectors like retail and hotels that tend to locate near where the office spaces are.
Thank you. We look forward to you and your colleagues' updates on that, because that will be one of the questions going forward. The second one for this podcast, Andrew, though the Fed welcomes the slowdown in job and wage growth, both metrics likely remain too high to contain inflation. With talk of yet another rate hike in December, where do you see the economy and the employment picture by this time next year? Just a simple question.
And I'll give you a simple answer, which is I can't say with certainty, but certainly the economy has shown greater resilience than some people gave it credit for. And I think if you had said that there would be this series of rate hikes with seemingly very little impact on the economic growth, I think that would, most people would be surprised. So we are not in a recession yet. Prospects are for slower growth, but I think it's not yet clear that we will go into a recession. And as I said, job growth remains very strong. The Fed is in a very difficult position right now because it has one real major tool, which is, raising interest rates to try to slow the economy. But it's not clear that labor markets are the primary driver of inflation right now. Historically, that has been the case when there are labor shortages and wages go up, and that fuels a lot of inflation, which as the labor costs work through the economy. Right now, it seems that that inflation is much more focused on energy costs, much more related to energy costs, and also to the supply disruptions that were caused during COVID. And the tools that the Fed is using right now to cool the economy really have very little impact on energy prices, which are set on a global market. And they're certainly doing nothing to increase the supply constraints, or to reduce supply constraints and increase the supply from overseas markets, which remain strained by reactions to COVID. So two of the major causes of inflation right now really aren't being dealt with by the Fed. But if the longer they keep pushing the economy, trying to restrain the economy, eventually it will eventually slow the economy and bring down inflation. Right now, we're reasonably optimistic that they can do it without a major recession, maybe just a moderation of growth, maybe just a short, shallow recession. But I think there's no real consensus yet on where we'll be a year from now.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Real estate, especially commercial real estate, flows based upon credit availability and the metrics behind borrowing and lending. And of course, every real estate professional wants to know where interest rates are going. When you look at a lot of the current writings on the interest rate, there's a kind of a scenario that emerges that the rates go up, they level off, then they may fall. Do you prescribe to that, or do you have any comments on that kind of up, level, down scenario?
First of all, interest rates, even with their increase now, are at historically pretty moderate levels, and so I think that is important to keep in mind, in terms of how it affects buyers' decisions or developers' decisions about real estate, investing in real estate. I think there's no doubt that interest rates are going to increase for a while longer and then moderate and come down. The big question is when. Until a couple of months ago, there were many industry participants who were optimistic that the Fed would be done with hiking by the end of this year, maybe moderate. Keep it moderate, in early 2023, and then rates would start to come down mid-year in 2023. I think the consensus now is that is optimistic, that the Fed is going to keep increasing rates for a while longer, and so we should probably not expect to see any interest rate declines until 2024. And as a result, as I think you implied by your question, some investor demand has moved to the sidelines, waiting to see how this all pans out.
Okay, thank you very much. So much to consider, and we certainly look forward to you and your colleagues dissecting this and your writing going forward. I want to thank you, Andrew, very much on behalf of the counselors and all who view this episode. We're grateful for your knowledge and your contributions to this year's report. Despite the supply side constraints, demand for labor is remarkably strong. We are in very uncertain times, so we look forward to your expertise weighing in. Join us next time for another discussion of one of the top 10 issues affecting real estate. I'm Bill McCarthy. On behalf of the Counselors of Real Estate, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Top 10 in 10. Thank you again, Andrew.
Thank you, Bill.